education, and she has got good experience with colleges, universities in Pune, and massive outreach, I must say. So this session is for you to resolve any queries you have about NEP, get a broader and a better perspective of this very important document that is now bringing changes for us. And then Madam will be delivering her talk with you. So, ma'am, a couple of questions in the beginning and then your talk.
Yeah, so good morning, everybody. A few, 2, 3 questions before I jump into the topic, as Dr. Faiza has now got a feel of how I go about it. So please go ahead and raise your queries in the first initial 10 minutes, and then we can have our talk, and then keep another 15 minutes at the end again for the interaction. Yes, I assume all of you have gone through the National Education Policy 2020 of 66 pages, and I'm sure all of you are already implementing it and grappling with the challenges of implementing. So please raise your hands and ask your queries. Let's take about 3 of you all. Yeah, Atish, yeah, please go ahead.
गुड मॉर्निंग मैम। मेरी जो क्वेरी है ये स्किल डेवलपमेंट और को करिकुलर सब्जेक्ट्स को लेकर के है। ये इंट्रोड्यूस कराया गया है, लेकिन कॉलेजेस में, यूनिवर्सिटीज में देखा जा रहा है कि टीचर्स कम है, तो जो उस सब्जेक्ट के नहीं है उनको वो चीज पढ़ाने को दे दी जा रही है। तो इससे रिलेटेड मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि ये क्यों इंट्रोड्यूस कराया गया, और अगर इंट्रोड्यूस कराया गया तो उसके टीचर्स कॉलेजेस में, यूनिवर्सिटीज में या इंस्टीट्यूशंस में क्यों नहीं है? थैंक यू मैम।
Anybody else? I can club up all the 2, 3 questions together. समय की अभाव से एक और दो क्वेश्चंस ले ले। हाँ, जीवन कुमार बताइए।
गुड मॉर्निंग मैम। मेरा प्रश्न है मैम टीचिंग को लेकर के। एक्चुअली जब से एनईपी लागू हुआ है, जब से हम लोग केवल परीक्षा करा रहे हैं, एडमिशन और परीक्षा, एक्चुअली बच्चे को पढ़ने के लिए बिल्कुल भी समय नहीं मिल पा रहा है।
ये आपकी समस्या आप जो बता रहे हैं, obsession with the exams has resulted in not having time for actual learning. ममता मीना और अवनीश विश्वकर्मा, ये दोनों भी आपके क्वेश्चन एक के बाद पूछ ले, और फिर no more questions. After that I'll jump into the talk and after answering your query. ममता, please go ahead.
मैम, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि हमने न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में जो माइनर सब्जेक्ट इंट्रोड्यूस किया है, माइनर सब्जेक्ट हम अल्टरनेटिव ईयर मतलब सेमेस्टर में देते हैं, और अल्टरनेटिव सेमेस्टर के बाद में बच्चों को सेम सब्जेक्ट नहीं देखने को मिलता है। मतलब उसके भी माइनर में फिर दूसरा, एक बार जो बच्चे ने माइनर ले लिया उसके बाद उसको वो माइनर ना मिलके दूसरा माइनर मिलता है। तो उसमें दिक्कत क्या होती है कि बच्चे को किसी भी एक टॉपिक पे, एक सब्जेक्ट पे बहुत अच्छे से कुछ भी नॉलेज नहीं हो पाती। केवल 6 मंथ वो एक टॉपिक से कोरिलेट कर पाता है। तो मैम मुझे लगता है कि मतलब ज़्यादा टाइम एक ही सब्जेक्ट को कंटिन्यू में करना चाहिए, मतलब कम से कम 1 साल तो पूरा एक ही माइनर सब्जेक्ट रखना चाहिए बस मैम। थैंक यू।
Yes, Avanish, you're the last person to ask in the first round. Yeah.
Yes ma'am, good morning ma'am. मैम, मेरा क्वेरी ये है कि जैसे नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी 2020 में ये प्रपोजल है कि स्टूडेंट टीचर रेशियो 30:1 होना चाहिए, 31 टीचर पर 30 स्टूडेंट्स। और ऑल्दो एनईपी की जो ड्राफ्टिंग मैंने स्टडी की है, ये अभी तक की वन ऑफ द बेस्ट ड्राफ्टिंग है इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के पर्पज से भी। बट दिक्कत ये है कि मैम जो टीचर का वर्कलोड है और जो फैकल्टीज की संख्या कम है, समस्या इसकी वजह से आ रही है। तो क्या इसमें एनईपी में क्या इस तरीके से भी कोई प्रावधान है, या इसको किसी बिल से कनेक्ट किया जा सकता है कि टीचर के रेशियो को ध्यान में रखते हुए भी टीचर्स की रिक्रूटमेंट की जाए? दिस इज माय पॉइंट।
Okay. So thank you all for raising your initial concerns. Let me take up what Jeevan Kumar has said in terms of the less time available for teaching with too many exams. हमने जो पॉलिसी में सेमेस्टर सिस्टम की प्रावधान लेके आया है, ये इसलिए लेके आए हैं कि आज के दिन में जो एंड ऑफ द ईयर एग्जाम के हिसाब से समेटिव एग्जाम दिया जाता है, उससे काफी सारे बच्चे पढ़ाई में बहुत पुअर परफॉर्मेंस दिखाते हैं। और वर्ल्ड ओवर ये ट्रेंड है कि आपका जो एनुअल डेटा कंटेंट है, इसको आप एक ही साल में ना पढ़ाते हुए आप 2 चंक्स में डिवाइड करें, ताकि आपको असेसमेंट फॉर लर्निंग एंड एज लर्निंग भी किया जाए। 3 तरह के असेसमेंट है, फॉर लर्निंग, ऑफ लर्निंग एंड बाय असेसमेंट इन लर्निंग, ऑफ लर्निंग एंड बाय ऑफ फॉर लर्न। तो ये जो फॉर्मेटिव असेसमेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है क्वालिटी के लिए, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली यूनिवर्सिटीज का जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि एक सेमेस्टर में आप सिर्फ 45 डेज आप एग्जाम के लिए रखें दोनों सेमेस्टर्स में, दैट मीन्स इन अ ईयर ओनली 90 days फॉर एग्जाम्स, and taking into account your vacation time and so on, you should still be able to get 200 working days. अब ये 200 वर्किंग डेज में ये भी जरूरी है कि हम डायरेक्ट लेक्चर के मोड में, जो हम बहुत ही फेमिलियर है उसके लिए, क्योंकि हम लेक्चर और भाषण देने में ही हमने सोचा एजुकेशन होती है, लेकिन एजुकेशन को एक्चुअली प्रैक्टिसिंग नेचर में बनाने के लिए पैसिव लर्निंग से लेके लेक्चर मोड को अवॉइड करते हुए एक्टिविटी बेस्ड टीचिंग और कॉम्पिटेंसी बेस्ड टीचिंग, जिसमें एक्टिविटीज हो, ग्रुप डिस्कशंस हो, तो इसमें फैकल्टी का रोल काफी बदलाव है। और मेरा रोल, मैं कॉलेज में जाते हुए मेरा 12 लेक्चर एक हफ्ते में हो या 14 लेक्चर एक हफ्ते में हो, ये 14 लेक्चर्स या 12 लेक्चर्स सिर्फ लेक्चर देते हुए नहीं करना है, लेकिन बाकी सारे एक्टिविटीज के साथ करना है, वे जो मैं और स्पष्ट करूंगी जब मैं मेरी क्लास और मेरी टॉक में चले जाऊंगी। बट कमिंग टू आतिश's क्वेश्चन, स्किल एनहांसमेंट हमको कोई आप लोगों को दिक्कत देने के लिए नहीं लेके आए हैं, दैट ऑल्सो यू विल गेट टू नो व्हेन आई एक्सप्लेन टू यू अबाउट दिस टॉपिक। एंड सो ऑल्सो दी वैल्यू एडेड कोर्सेज या जो भी आपके एडिशनल कोर्सेज जो आप नहीं करते हैं, बट ये नहीं कहा है कि मैं जो फिजिक्स का टीचर हूं मैं जाके स्किल डेवलपमेंट के कोर्स, ये हमने कहीं नहीं लिखा है। स्किल एनहांसमेंट के लिए फैकल्टी जो इंडस्ट्री से है इन्हीं को लेना है, क्योंकि हमारे हायर एजुकेशन संस्थाएं बहुत शॉर्ट साइटेड है, ना इंडस्ट्री के साथ कोलैबोरेट करना चाहते हैं, ना दूसरे इंस्टीट्यूशन के साथ कोलैबोरेट करना चाहते हैं। तो एग्जिस्टिंग फैकल्टी, अगर मैं एजुकेशन के फैकल्टी होते हुए मुझे बताया गया कि मैं एग्री बिजनेस मैनेजमेंट सिखाए, आई एम अ फेलियर, आई कैन नॉट टीच इट, आई एम नॉट कॉम्पिटेंट टू टीच इट। तो जो स्किल के कोर्सेस है हमने ये नहीं किया है कि आप सिखाए। अब आई स्पोर्ट्स की बात, आपको अगर फुटबॉल सिखाना है, आप फुटबॉल खेलते होंगे, बट यू आर नॉट कॉम्पिटेंट टू बी अ फुटबॉल कोच। जो स्पोर्ट्स के एक्टिविटीज है या ड्रामेटिक्स के एक्टिविटीज है, ये जो सेक्टर में अवेलेबल है और इनको यूजीसी के पे स्केल्स के हिसाब से नहीं लेना है, उनको ओनली ऑन अ कॉन्ट्रैक्ट बेसिस फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक टू बी टॉट एंगेज करना है। लेकिन ये सब चीज न करते हुए यही फैकल्टी जो है, मुझे अगर फुटबॉल खेलना आते तो चलो आप फुटबॉल भी सिखा लो, इस तरह से नहीं सिखाया जाता है। ये गलत तरीके से क्योंकि संस्थाएं इंप्लीमेंट कर रहे हैं, ये सारे दिक्कतें आ रहे हैं। और ये सारी चीजें आजकल हम वर्कशॉप्स में जब करते हैं तब हमारी नोटिस में आते हैं, क्योंकि स्किल्स के लिए जो क्राफ्ट्समैन है या कोई इंडस्ट्री है, इन्हीं के मदद के साथ लेना है। और स्पोर्ट्स या म्यूजिक या डिबेटिंग या ड्रामेटिक्स या कोई भी पेंटिंग, ये सारे चीज हम नहीं सिखा सकते हैं। दीज हैव टू बी टॉट बाय पीपल हु आर इन दैट फील्ड। They are not to be given UGC scales, not a regular appointment against a position of assistant professor or anything. They are to be appointed as contract teachers only for the purposes of doing that. That is the next point. Now coming to what Mamta is saying, ये जो हमारे माइंड में है मेजर माइनर और जो हम लेते आए हुए हैं, जिस तरह से हमने शिक्षा की है, वही चीज हम हमारे स्टूडेंट्स के ऊपर जो थोपने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, ये सारे सिस्टम से अब बाहर आइए। हमारे जो 4 ईयर अंडर ग्रेजुएट करिकुला के हिसाब से हम 6 कैटेगरीज ऑफ कोर्सेज बोलते हैं, जो हम सेमेस्टर वाइज नहीं डिवाइड किए हैं। हम सेमेस्टर वाइज इसलिए डिवाइड किए क्योंकि सेमेस्टराइजेशन है, बट वी आर सेइंग कॉमन कोर्सेज आप फर्स्ट सेकेंड थर्ड सेमेस्टर तक सिखाइए। कोर डिसिप्लिनरी कोर्सेज आप स्टार्ट कीजिए फर्स्ट से लेके 6 सेमेस्टर तक। मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी आप फर्स्ट से लेके 6 सेमेस्टर तक। Ability enhancement you can teach up to your 3rd semester. Skill enhancement and value added courses you can spread it out over your 3 semesters. Now this in which विदाउट डूइंग करिकुलम प्लानिंग आपके जो माइंड में है कि माइनर हम थर्ड में ऑफर करते, या फिर हम फिफ्थ में ऑफर करते, या सेकंड में ऑफर करते, या फोर्थ में, इससे आप बाहर निकलिए। और जो 4 ईयर गाइडलाइंस यूजीसी के है, अगर आपने नहीं पढ़ा है तो अब भी जाके आप पढ़ सकते हो कि ये 4 ईयर करिकुला आप किस तरह से, आपका जो 6 कैटेगरीज ऑफ कोर्सेस है, इसको आप ऑफर करें। अब हर संस्था में ये दिक्कत होती है कि फैकल्टी की अभाव हो सकती है, और इस वजह से वो सेमेस्टराइजेशन में कुछ कोर्सेस लेके आते हैं। ये जब आप हाफ हार्टेड इम्प्लीमेंटेशन करोगे, then you will have a lot of problems, because students will not acquire core discipline as well as multidisciplinary। और जो ओपन इलेक्टिव या माइनर जो भी टर्मिनोलॉजी आप यूज करना चाहते हैं आप यूज कर सकते हैं, अलग अलग राज्यों में अलग अलग टर्म्स यूज कर रहे हैं। आइडिया इज कॉमन टू ऑल across 3 semesters। Core is the core discipline in which student wants to major। I'll explain it as I go along, क्योंकि ये टॉपिक में ज्यादा थ्रस्ट उसी पे है। फिर आ गया आपका इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी, जो आप ओपन इलेक्टिव बोलते या माइनर बोलते, जो भी आप बोलना चाहते हैं। एबिलिटी एनहांसमेंट जो लैंग्वेज की है, स्किल एनहांसमेंट जो वोकेशनल टाइप की है, और वैल्यू एडेड जो है ये ओवर एंड अबाउट दिस। एंड दिस एंटायर स्ट्रक्चर इज टू बी डन इन अ वेरी फ्लेक्सिबल मैनर, एंड नॉट सेइंग कि मेरे संस्था में यही है इसलिए मैं आप यही ले सकते हो। आप दूसरे संस्था से कोलैबोरेट कीजिए। हमारी प्रॉब्लम ये है कि मेरी डिसिप्लिन सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है और दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट से भी हम बात नहीं कर पाते हैं। और यहाँ पे हमने एनईपी पे आते हुए कोलैबोरेशन आज के दिन में आप नहीं करोगे तो यू विल बिकम एक्सटिंक्ट। लेट मी टेल यू दैट collaboration is what is the need of the hour। Collaborating with other colleagues, collaborating with other departments, collaborating with other institutions, collaborating at international level। अगर आपको नैक क्रेडिटेशन मिलना है, रैंकिंग मिलना है, और आपके स्टूडेंट्स छात्रों को, फॉरगेट एनीथिंग एल्स, आपके स्टूडेंट्स को एम्प्लॉयबिलिटी मिलना है, ना कि वो डिग्री लेके रास्ते पे विदाउट एनी वर्क ही इज मूविंग अप एंड डाउन। इफ दिस इज नॉट व्हाट यू वांट एजुकेशन टू बी, then please acclimatize yourself to these new requirements। और हर एक संस्था अपना शॉर्टकट यूज करते हुए एनईपी को जिस तरह से वो इंटरप्रेट करना चाहेंगे, then it will be a failure, it will be counterproductive। ना वो सीखेंगे जैसे ममता ने बताया, ना ये सीखेंगे, ना वो सीखेंगे, ना किसी में वो उसका एक स्ट्रेंथ नहीं लेके आ पाए। So it is a poor understanding of the 4-year undergraduate program, which unfortunately you people as young faculty attending an induction program may not be the persons to talk to। Bring it to the notice of your HODs कि यही बताया गया है, यही है यूजीसी के गाइडलाइंस, हमारे संस्था में ये ठीक से नहीं हो रहा है, हमें प्लीज इस तरह से लेके आइए करके आप बात करना है। You have to take up your own battle and take it up। Now coming to what Avanish Vishwakarma was raising, आपका प्रश्न एक और बार जरा पूछ लीजिए अवनीश।
मैम मेरा प्रश्न ये है कि एनएपी में ये बताया गया है कि टीचर स्टूडेंट रेशियो 1:30।
Yes, yes, I got it। So you cannot have a kind of curricular framework depending on availability of faculty। अगर हम इस तरह से पॉलिसी बनाने जाएंगे तो पॉलिसी की जरूरत ही नहीं है। हम बोलेंगे जो चल रहा है वही चलने दीजिए, जो भी प्रॉब्लम्स है वही चलने दीजिए। ये पॉलिसीज हमेशा एस्पिरेशनल होती है, और ये नहीं हम आज के करंट सिचुएशन में ये कमियां है इस वजह से हम पॉलिसी नहीं लेके आएंगे, नहीं कर सकते हैं। अगर इकोनॉमी के बात अगर करोगे तो हमारे इसमें पॉवर्टी है, इसलिए हमारा जीडीपी ग्रो नहीं करना है, हम नहीं बोल सकते हैं। कोई भी नेशन ऐसे नहीं कर पाएगा। पॉलिसी हमेशा जो भी कमियां है इसको किस तरह से सुधार करते हुए हम अचीव करें, यही हम बोलेंगे। अब जो आइडियल रेशियो है, ये एक आइडियल रेशियो है। अब स्कूलों में भी या हायर एजुकेशन में भी, एग्रीकल्चर में जाएंगे तो पीटीआर रेशियो 1:1 है, मैनेजमेंट में जाएंगे तो 1:15 है। तो अलग अलग लेवल्स के लिए अलग अलग रेशियो बताइए। इट इज नॉट अ स्टैंडर्ड रेशियो फॉर ऑल डिसिप्लिन एंड फॉर ऑल लेवल्स। सो if it is for undergraduate we are talking, there may be teacher shortages that has to be come in by filling those vacancies। Up to the time you do not fill in, you can take them on contract or you can keep them in an ad hoc, but that is not a desirable thing। The policy clearly says all faculty positions must be filled in, एंड नॉट ओनली दैट, हमने ये भी किया है कि जो इंडस्ट्री ड्रिवन कोर्सेस है, और क्योंकि इंडस्ट्री की फ्लेवर आना है, हमने ये भी प्रोवाइड किया है कि हम प्रोफेसर्स ऑफ प्रैक्टिस को अपॉइंट करेंगे। और प्रोफेसर्स ऑफ प्रैक्टिस वो है जो 15 साल का इंडस्ट्री एक्सपीरियंस या प्रोफेशनल एक्सपीरियंस है, तो विदाउट लुकिंग एट देयर क्वालिफिकेशंस दैट दे कैन बी एंगेज्ड। अब ये सारे एनेबलर्स हमने प्रोवाइड की है, ना कि हम ये बताए कि फैकल्टी एक संस्था में कुछ डिसिप्लिन में ज्यादा होंगे, दूसरे डिसिप्लिन में कम होंगे। हम ये नहीं कहेंगे कि जहां ज्यादा है हम ये ऑफर करेंगे, जहां कम है हम नहीं ऑफर करेंगे। इस तरह से हम ज्यादा इनइक्वालिटीज हम क्रिएट करेंगे और एक कंप्लीटली अनस्टेबल एजुकेशन सिस्टम लेके आ जाएंगे। तो दैट इज नॉट द सॉल्यूशन, दो टेम्परली यू मे फील that that is the most practical. However, it is not a good or a pragmatic solution. So let me now thank you for having raised your initial questions and come to the topic that we are talking about, transformations in higher education. I go with the assumption that all of you have read the national education policy in totality, that is the entire 66 pages, and not had read only the part relating to higher education. I also want you to read through all the UGC guidelines for implementing the NEP, which are a large number today, starting with the 4-year undergraduate program curriculum framework, multiple entry and exit, academic bank of credit, transforming institutions into multidisciplinary institutions, Indian knowledge systems, global citizenship education, the NHEQF, National Credit Framework, internationalization of higher education, guidelines for 2-year postgraduate program, guidelines for internship. So there are about at least 15 to 18 guidelines. अब एक चीज हम टीचर्स में जो है, हम अपने आप को एम्पावर नहीं करते, हम ये खुद से अपने आप से सीखने की कोशिश नहीं करते। ये सारे गाइडलाइंस यूजीसी के वेबसाइट में है और मैंने शायद लिंक्स भी भेजा हुआ है काफी टाइम पहले। इफ नॉट, आई कैन वंस अगेन सेंड इट टू डॉक्टर फैजा, बट प्लीज गो थ्रू दीज गाइडलाइंस। ना कि आपके संस्था में जो ठीक से नहीं हो रहा है ये भी आपके सामने आ जाएंगे, ताकि यू कैन गाइड द इंस्टीट्यूशन, because institutions are also grappling with it. But now coming to the topic, we are largely focusing in this discussion on the 4-year holistic, integrated, flexible undergraduate program. This is the thrust when we talk about the major transformation under NEP, जिससे आप सारे faculty connected है, and this is what you're trying to understand. But since you are all educators, don't look at only the small part of the finger, look at the hand incomplete and try to understand the policy in its larger perspective. Why you need to do that is, unless you are convinced that this policy has come out for this purpose, you will never be implementing the policy in the true spirit. ये आप समझ लीजिए, आप ही है catalyst for the change. You are the ones bringing about the change. You have a greater responsibility that you empower yourself by understanding the spirit of the policy. And you need not implement a policy because someone is pointing a gun at you. You implement a policy because it is essential, very imperative, critical that we implement the policy as it is. To do that, you need to understand the background of it. So policy, why does it come out? And what kind of policies come out? So as far as education policy is concerned, independent India has seen 3 major education policies. 1968, that is the outcome of the Kothari Commission report. 86, a Cape Committee report, modified in 1992. Both these policies came out in the 20th century. आपको ये बहुत पुराना नहीं दिखता है, क्योंकि हमारे जनरेशन ये दोनों सेंचुरीज देखे हैं, 20th and 21st. बच्चा जो 2001 में जन्म लिया है वो ज्यादातर 21st century देखेंगे. They have not seen the 20th century and they are unlikely, unless they cross 100 years, to see the 22nd century. So in the last century we had 2 policies. In this century, we have the 2020 policy. And when did it come out? 2 decades after this century has started. Now, no policy is to be understood in a related manner. What do I mean by that? In the sense, policies are independent of each other. It is not to say that 68 policy में कुछ कमियां थी, इसीलिए हमने 86 पॉलिसी लेके आया है, या 86 पॉलिसी में कुछ कमियां थे इसलिए हम 2020 में पॉलिसी लेके आए हैं. Policies are independent of each other. They are not remedying or correcting any gaps in previous policies, because policies are responding to changes that happen in the society and in the globe. That is to be understood. That is why policies have to come out at regular intervals. So it is not only in education. Defense policy hoti hai, economic policy hoti hai, industrial policy hoti hai, trade policy hoti hai, foreign policy hoti hai, youth policy hoti hai, health policy hoti hai, technology policy hoti hai, startup policy hoti hai. In all fields that the government deals with, policies keep coming out. Policies are never frozen in point of time. They are never frozen because, as I said, policies are responding to certain changes within the society and the economy. So as educators, the first and foremost thing that you must understand is what are those changes that NEP 2020 was responding to. What are the drivers of change that we in this committee were trying to understand, so that we are empowering the stakeholders. So in education, the understanding of the 2 critical components is knowledge and learning. I'm sure all of us sitting over here agree that जब हम education बोलते हैं तो इसमें 2 basic components है, knowledge और learning. Or knowledge and learning in the 21st century is different from knowledge and learning in the 20th century. What do I mean by that? All of us who are here, I say I am a professor of political science, I am a professor of English, I am a professor of chemistry, because I did my master's or my PhD in that discipline. We looked at discipline, we looked at knowledge in hard compartmentalized manner. That is, they are existing to the exclusion of other disciplines. That political science is existing to the exclusion of chemistry. That English literature is existing to the exclusion of sociology. That is, discipline was seen as singular, whereas in the 21st century, discipline is seen as integrated. That integration of disciplines is the critical part of understanding that knowledge disciplines do not exist in hard silos, but exist in coexistence with other disciplines, and there is interconnections between disciplines. That is why we use in the 21st century the new terms of interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, cross-disciplinarity, transdisciplinarity. Go back when you do after this session and Google and see the literature review on multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity. You will not find it in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. You may start seeing some trends in the 1990s and becoming very, very popular in the 21st century. In recent literature, you will hear these new terms. That is a recognition that, unlike you and me, where we had disciplinary boundaries, the idea that disciplinary boundaries are blurring and that they do not exist in hard silos and in hard compartments, but rather they are getting integrated and getting interconnected, is the reason why knowledge in the 21st century is multi-dimensional and not unidimensional or singular in its nature. Therefore, music interacts with mathematics, mathematics interacts with political science, engineering interacts with agriculture, and so many ways in which the disciplines are becoming more and more integrated by nature. That is the first character in the change of knowledge. The second is the fact of learning. Most of us sitting here as teachers and faculty in higher education were concerned with only one pillar of learning, whereas learning in the 21st century talks about four pillars of learning. That we are only dealing as teachers who came with only the first pillar of learning, whereas learning in the 21st century expects us to understand learning as multidimensional, which has four pillars of learning. Learning to know, which is what we are most familiar with. The knowledge, the cognitive knowledge that resides in me as a teacher of theories, of concepts, of the disciplines I teach, which I pass on to my students. That is the learning to know, the cognitive knowledge. In the 21st century, the second pillar of learning is the learning to do, which is the skills, the experiential, the problem solving, the application of theory to real life situations. And that is the learning to do, which is more in our theory of education, the psychomotor with the hands. The third pillar of learning is the idea of sustainable development. And because we are living in a world which is moving to sustainable development, so we need to look at all those aspects of learning to live together and to live with others. So the third pillar of learning, learning to live together and to live with others. So you have new subjects: universal human values, peace education, global citizenship education, education for sustainable development. What is it coming from? It is coming from the factor that peace, compassion, tolerance, diversity, acceptance of agreeing to disagree, and that learning happens in peace-driven societies, not in war-torn societies. So learning to live together and to live with others promotes the idea of collaboration, peace, cooperation, which is critical to sustainable societies. Just as living together among human beings is important, it is equally important that we learn to live with other forms of life: the forest, the environment, the climate, the water, the energy, because these are sources which are getting depleted and we need to protect and preserve it. So to protect the planet and create sustainable societies and sustainable communities, learning about climate action, climate mitigation, protecting the environment, protecting the forests, creating renewable sources of energy, all this is a part of learning to live together and to live with others. The fourth pillar of learning is learning to be. Just the alphabets B and E. What is that recognizing? It is recognizing that 134 of us sitting in this virtual classroom, that each one of us is unique in our capabilities, in our potentials, in our talents, in our competencies, and in our abilities. Therefore, education system cannot be structured. It has to be individualized and customized with flexibility and multiple pathways. So the multidimensionality of learning, learning to know, to do, to live together and to live with others, and to be, all these, as well as the multidimensionality of knowledge, calls for a complete break from structured systems of education of which you and I are a part. And that is why our resistance to anything that is moving away from structured to the flexible. Please understand, if we continue to teach our students the way our teachers taught us, we can be sure that our students will be a failure in life. Because when we were taught, knowledge was singular. Knowledge was not multidimensional. When we were taught, we were only learning to know. We were only looking at the cognitive side of the brain. We were not understanding that the right and the left, both are equally important for an individual's development. So these two are the two critical drivers. And the third driver of change is the onset of disruptive technologies. What are disruptive technologies? It is there in the word itself. It disrupts the way we work, the way we communicate, the way we travel, the way we bank, the way we will do many things in life. So, internet and computers was another thing. But artificial intelligence, data science, robotics, machine learning, augmented reality, virtual reality completely disrupt what? It is disrupting the kind of jobs that will come about tomorrow. So our teachers did not have to prepare us for such a complex world. Whereas we are preparing our students not for yesterday and not for today. We are preparing them for a future where knowledge is multidimensional, learning is multidimensional, and the job profiles are completely unknown. If you hear people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk, and they tell you that if artificial intelligence goes the way it is, in 7 years down the line, there will be no jobs left for human beings. It is in that context that we need to teach. It is in this context that we need to empower our students. So who are the major stakeholders in an education system? The students, the teachers, and the educational institutions. And what do we want to do to the students? We want to empower them. Empower them with the right kind of knowledge, skills, competencies, capabilities, and attitudes that make them productive individuals. Why productive? If they are unemployed and they are a dependent population, then it is a complete disaster if they are going to remain unemployed people. So that piece of paper that they call a degree can go straight into the waste paper basket if they are not able to get productive themselves. So the need for change comes where we are shaken out of our comfort zone, because we have to throw away all our old lecture notes. We have to change our attitudes. We have to move from becoming merely a lecturer to becoming a facilitator. All this is shaking us from the comfort zone. But don't forget, you're not here for a clerical job of 9 to 5. You chose to be a teacher, to shape young minds to become productive individuals. And if you have to do that, you must be able to adapt to the new ways that are needed for making our students future ready. So to empower the students with the right kind of knowledge, skills, and competencies to become productive individuals, contributing to their own individual economic development, societal development, economic development, national growth, and to become what we call 21st century global citizens. It is these three drivers of change that we need to take into account. The reason why NEP 2020 is making out a very strong case to move away from structured systems to flexible systems arises from the need that today a graduate looked by an employer has a different character. And after this lecture, you can go and Google it out. We are all I-shaped graduates. What do I mean by I-shaped graduate? That I have core disciplinary depth in a single discipline. Whereas an employer today wants a graduate who is a T-shaped graduate. You can Google it even as I speak. What is a T-shaped graduate? A T-shaped graduate is along with the core discipline. The student will have multiple disciplinary exposure, multiple skill sets, and multiple competencies. Why? Because when you have disruptive technologies, when you do not know what the future jobs are looking like tomorrow, and where machine intelligence is challenging human intelligence with driverless cars and so on, it is important that our students have multiple skill sets. Nikhil, I was answering what is a T-shaped student. Listen to me. A T-shaped student is one who will have disciplinary depth, that is your I part of it, and the bar of the T is multiple disciplinary exposure, multiple knowledge sets, and multiple skill sets and competencies. That is a T-shaped graduate. So employers today are not interested in saying, I am a BTech mechanical. The student is expected to understand economics. The student is expected to understand business administration. The student is expected to have skill sets, which may be in AI and so many other things. So the need, therefore, you and I are comfortable in our zones that we are. But here we are here for what purpose? Not for getting our salary. We are here because we want our students to go into the world of work and get jobs to become productive individuals. If all our India's youth population, which is the largest youth population in the world, and this youth is going to remain unemployed, then it is a demographic disaster that we will be looking at. So please motivate yourself to understand that you have to change from the way you have been teaching so far to look at learner-centered approaches with flexibility in choices of subjects, flexibility in the way in which they will have lot of disciplinary exposures, multiple skill sets. It is this idea that comes not necessarily all questions at the end of the session, please. Now I continue my talk and only now at the end. So all the changes that we bring in NEP ideally should have been in the school education. We are talking about the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, and that is starting from age 3 to age 18. The first 5 years is the foundational stage, that is 3 to 8. 8 to 11 is the preparatory stage. 11 to 14 is the middle stage, and 14 to 18 is the secondary stage. And the higher education comes after that. Ideally, we should have done for higher education after school education. Can you imagine? We would have to wait for almost 14 years to implement in higher education. Without, therefore, doing that, simultaneously we are bringing changes in school and higher. Therefore, when I ask you to read the policy in entirety, it comes from a reason that we are very clear that education happens in an organic continuum. It happens at each stage in a developmentally appropriate manner. And what happens in early education impacts other education. Therefore, it is important for us to understand the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, because early education is informal learning, joy-based learning, activity-based learning, and you're enjoying the learning process by instilling the power of curiosity in the child, preparedness to learn, helping them knowing how to learn is what we do in the foundational stage, along with the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic, which we call as literacy and numeracy today. The preparatory is the initiation into formal learning, which happens between the ages of 8 to 11, and which is in your grades 3, 4, and 5. And the middle stage from classes 6 to 8 is where we are doing with a lot of changes, where we are saying, if you remember in your school days or your children studying today, we are saying certain subjects are curricular subjects, certain subjects are co-curricular subjects, and certain subjects are extracurricular. What did we give marks and weightage for? Only the curricular subjects: maths, science, social sciences, languages. I like music, it is treated as extracurricular. I like to play a sport, it is treated as extracurricular. I do something in environment, it is treated as co-curricular. we have done away with that altogether. Why? Because every child has different unique talents, and every child's talent must be optimized. And therefore, being a good musician is as important as being a good football player, or is as important as becoming a good mathematician, or is as important as becoming a good scientist. Not all of us can become one. It is like saying that in my class, I have fishes, I have birds, I have dogs, I have elephant, I have a crocodile, and I want my goal that all of them can fly. This is what we are doing. All of them can never fly. So we have to understand that every individual is unique, and that unique talent in each one has to be nurtured by the educational system. So in the middle school, we are bringing about this complete change where these hard separations are going, and all your entrance examinations to NEET, to IIT JEE, to CUET will give weightage to all the marks scored by students in language, in music, in sports, in mathematics, in sciences. All of them are equal, and all of them are not in a hierarchical position, but all of them stand laterally as equally important. And this must also be supplemented by the fact that so long we've been putting a lot of emphasis on testing what? On testing memory. And I'm not saying that memory is a bad thing, but what has happened as a consequence is that there was no real learning. There was no real assimilation. They memorized things and they vomited it on their answer scripts, and they move out with a piece of paper that they call a degree, which is having no value at all because there was no real learning. So what do you need to test? Their problem solving abilities, their analytical skills, their scientific temper, their independent thought. All these skills, what we call the 21st century skills, or what we call the higher order thinking skills. For that, you must change the way in which you teach. You must not be teaching them by using only activities where the teacher is talking and talking and talking, and the receiver is possibly not receiving anything at all. And therefore, the student has to be engaged through a lot of activities which will engage them in, let us say, group discussions, in laboratory work, in practicals, in field work, all where their different abilities come out. And this is basically what we are starting in the middle stage and in the national curriculum framework for the school education. For the last stage, that is 9 to 12, which we see in two blocks, 9 and 10 with your class 10 exam, and 11 and 12 with your class 12 exams, we are talking about 8 curricular areas in which all students will choose subjects: mathematics education, science education, social science education, language education, art education, sports education, vocational education, and interdisciplinary areas. So students will choose subjects across these ranges and not confine themselves to only one single area. And this is what we have taken into higher education, and which is what you are all trying to grapple and understand. So the 4-year undergraduate program, which is a flexible 3-year or 4-year, which is integrated and which is giving students flexibility to choose courses across disciplines. So your college is only an arts college or a science college or a commerce college. You cannot restrict the multidisciplinary choices. The institutions must collaborate. And we have said it completely open that I can choose English literature with mechanical engineering. I can choose anthropology with agriculture. We have said that the current degrees, BA, BCom, BSc, BTech, BE, MBBS, BSc Agriculture, BSc Nursing, BEd, BPharm, Bachelor of Laws, all this, all of them will become multidisciplinary. And that I can learn law along with political science, I can learn law along with engineering, I can learn computer science along with music, I can learn music along with any other subject. This is the sky is the limit. However, practically what is possible has to be seen. Why? Because our institutions are not multidisciplinary. That is why the UGC guidelines transforming institutions into multidisciplinary institutions lay down the guidelines so that institutions start collaborating. Two institutions enter into an MOU so as to make multidisciplinary offerings a reality. It can be an arts and commerce college along with an engineering college, or a science college along with a arts college, in any combination, but in a given vicinity. And we are also saying that if colleges are located in rural areas and within 10 kilometers radius, there are no other colleges, then you can frame timetables in such a way they are located, let's say 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers at a distance. To make multidisciplinarity, we are saying frame your timetables out of 6 working days, where students 4 days are in a college which is in a given area and 2 days the student is in another institution. So go through those guidelines, because I am only giving you an overview of it in the limited time. But flexibility to take up courses across disciplines, flexibility to take up courses across institutions, and if there are courses which are not there even in other institutions, flexibility to take up courses through MOOCs or through open and distance education. So the flexibility is in the mode of learning. And the fourth flexibility we are giving is that you need not do all the 3 years or 4 years in one go. You can take an exit at the end of any year. So the multiple entry and exit, that I can do my first year and get a UG certificate, or I complete my second year and get a UG diploma, or I complete my third year and completely leave the bachelor's degree program with a bachelor's degree, is allowed, or I go into the fourth year. All this is possible because we have a digital academic bank of credit. Please understand, when we studied, if we were 40 students in a class, our mark sheet or our grade card would have 95% looked alike. The only difference would be in a few optional subjects. But today, if there are 40 students in a class, there can be 8 to 10 varieties of combination of subjects they have taken. You cannot keep a physical record of such things. That is why the ABC is a digital academic bank of credit. Initially, we said that we can use the Aadhaar, which all of us have, to deal as the unique ID. But now we have said, since Aadhaar has so many other multiple functions, for academic purposes, we will create an automated personal academic account registration number, which we call the APAR. And already we have about 25 million students who have created their APAR accounts. And this is done through the DigiLocker. All higher education institutions onboard onto the ABC portal. If your colleges are affiliated, it is your university that onboards onto it. And the university within itself will have its internal ABC to make up for the mobility. And this is seen with a period of 7 years for multiple entry and exit, which means that suppose from the academic year 24-25, my university is implementing the 4-year program. I join in 2024. I decide to exit in 2025, and I want to do a 3-year undergraduate program. Then I should work out my maximum period from 2024 and come back to complete the remaining 2 years if it is 3-year program, or 3 years if it is a 4-year program, within that 7-year window. To facilitate all this, the ABC is there. The mobility across institutions is taken care of by the National Higher Education Qualification Framework. And to ensure that skills, open and distance learning are all integrated under multidisciplinarity, we also have a national credit framework. So, 4-year undergraduate flexible program with 3 instrumentalities: the Academic Bank of Credit, the National Higher Education Qualification Framework, the National Credit Framework, enables an ecosystem where flexibility can be maintained, credit mobility can be maintained, where integration of mainstream education, skill education, research education, polytechnic education, all are taken into account. Now, what is that 4-year curriculum looking like? As per the UGC guidelines, and let me make a point over here. Education is a subject in the concurrent list of the Constitution. Therefore, the Government of India can only give recommendatory guidelines. Every state government brings out its own regulations. So, to give you an example, UGC says 40 credits per year. 3-year program, 120 credits. 4-year program, 160 credits. Whereas Maharashtra government says 3-year program, it is 180 credits. And 4-year program, it is 220 credits. Kerala government says 133 credits for 3-year program, 177 credits for 4-year program. As a faculty member teaching in a college attached to a university in a given state, you need to know both the UGC guidelines and your state government guidelines. Please take that into account. Having said that, I am trying to tell you the UGC framework. 40 credits per year. And what do you teach? What are the categories of courses? 6 categories of courses. Common courses, which are all like communication skills, problem solving skills, digital skills, research skills, Indian knowledge systems, universal human values, Indian environmental studies, sensitivity to gender, community studies, and so on. All these are common courses. Mind you, for common courses, except those courses where credits are earmarked, you need not identify special periods or classes for them. Meaning that in your timetable, you need not have a timetable which will indicate communication skills or problem solving skills or digital skills or research skills. But if Indian knowledge systems, which is 2 credits, or universal human values, which is 2 credits, has got credits, then you can earmark periods for that. Then comes your core disciplinary areas. What is the core disciplinary area? Your core discipline is the one in which the student wants to do their major. It can be physics, it can be political science, it can be education, it can be agribusiness management, it can be engineering, it can be law, whatever. This is the core area in which I want to do my degree. That is the understanding. The student wants to do the degree. In that, and I'll tell you how it is spread out. Then your interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary, which like Mamta is using a word like minor or elective or all. Every state is using, as per their institution, some nomenclature. Now, this multidisciplinary is, suppose if I've taken physics, my multidisciplinary cannot be chemistry or mathematics. It has to be either law or political science or English literature or agriculture or pharmacy, whatever is available. But it cannot be in it cannot be in sciences. It has to be either applied sciences or social sciences or humanities and so on. This is where that collaboration across institutions become very important. Then comes your ability enhancement courses. What is ability enhancement? They are all language courses. Since we have said multilingualism, we want, and we are offering higher education in regional languages also. You can have it in communicative English, you can have it in communicative Hindi, it can be in Sanskrit, it can be in Telugu, it can be in Gujarati, it can be in Marathi, whatever language. So ability enhancement courses, skill enhancement courses. And please don't sit with this understanding that skill means becoming a plumber or an electrician. We have reached much beyond that to talk about logistics management, supply chain management, cold chain management, retail management, service sector management, hospital management, hotel and tourism sector management, agribusiness, fisheries management, aquaculture. There is a range about 20 to 25 to 30 in new and emerging areas for skill education. And this is a part of that T bar. You remember what I said, the I and the T. The T bar requires students to have that, because we don't know what type of jobs they may have. Their existing discipline may become completely outdated, and they may have to have multiple skill sets. So they may have this small thing. Okay, I did something in retail management. This is a sector where jobs are coming up and I can get jobs in that area. Then comes your value added courses. So some cases institutions are fudging between the two and including skill and value added as being interchangeable. But basically value added is over and above this. You can have something in 3D modeling, AI, design thinking, media studies, these including community work and community projects. These are all coming into that. Now, we have made all undergraduate education to have a mandatory component of internship, because today we are hearing this statement that our students cannot get employment. There are a lot of unemployed graduates, but worse still is what we are hearing, that our graduates are unemployable, that the employability quotient of our students is completely missing. And I look at it as a direct slap on my face. All of us as faculty, when we read that statement, must understand that we are the ones who are being targeted when they say our graduates are unemployable. And that is because there is a huge disconnect between the world of education and the world of work. And our students must get exposure, how to communicate, how to participate in a group activity, how to undertake a field survey, how to go out and find a problem and identify that problem, go through certain methods and come out with some solution. So all undergraduate, and these are not restricted to corporate sector internships or industry. Internships are completely defined in the 4-year undergraduate curriculum, which is in interning with other postgraduate departments, with a research scholar, with an NGO, with a government department, with a museum, with a library, many ways, studying government schemes. We are not saying that all undergraduate students will go to corporate and industry. We are 40 million students in our undergraduate institutions. Don't expect 40 million students to be accommodated by the corporate and the industry. Engineering graduates, technical and professional graduates, yes, they have to go to the corporate. But a student studying literature, or a student studying history, or a student studying physics, or a student studying, let us say, something in agriculture, these will take up internships according to that area that they relate to. Now, these combinations that we talk, 40 credits per year with the option of exiting at the end of every year. When I want to exit and I want a certificate, mandatorily I should have completed that internship. Otherwise, you can do your internship in your 3rd year. But if you want a certificate at the end of 1st year, then that internship must be completed. So as faculty, where you conduct your induction program with your students, you must know all this information. If you don't have, you have half-baked knowledge and you go there and a student tells you in 2nd semester, I want to exit and get certificate. You can say you can exit, but you will not get certificate because you did not do the internship. Let us not create that kind of a confusion. And we should therefore be aware that internship is mandatory for certification, even in the 1st year or the 2nd year, should you choose to exit. But if you are not exiting, you can go ahead and do it in your 5th semester also. That is in your the 3rd year itself. Now, 40 credits per year. You can exit your bachelor's degree at the end of the 3rd year. No one is forcing you to do the 4th year. But you can also get your major out of 120 credits. If I take up more than 50% credits in one core discipline, I will get a bachelor's in bracket, that discipline in which I scored more than 50 credits. So it can be physics, it can be English literature, it can be any other discipline in which more than 50% of my 3-year 120 credits I did in that discipline. You can leave the bachelor's completely. Should you want to go into the 4th year, you have 2 options. And mind you, I'm talking about this because already engineering, medicine and all are 4-year program. I'm talking about non-technical and non-professional courses which are in our sciences, social sciences, humanities, business administration, education and so on, which are all less than 4 years. Now the 4th year that we talk about, 2 options. You can do your 6th, 7th and the 8th semester doing it with coursework, and you can continue to do it with getting a majoring in more than 50% credits, which will entitle to your bachelor's with honors. And you can take up 1 honors subject and, as suggested, maybe 2 minors or maybe 2 major honors. So with coursework is your second option of your undergraduate program. The third option, those students who scored a CGPA of more than 7.5, which means about more than 75%, and want to go into the 4th year with research, will do in the 7th and the 8th a research project, submit a dissertation almost equivalent to an MPhil dissertation, and that is called a bachelor's with honors and research. Okay? Now, your 3 graduate programs, 3-year bachelor's, 4-year bachelor's with coursework, 4-year bachelor's with research, impacts your master's. The 3-year bachelor's will do the revised interdisciplinary 2 years PG. The 4-year bachelor's with coursework will do the revised 1-year master's program. And the 4-year bachelor's with research is completely exempted from doing master's and can join the PhD program. So at the PhD level, maybe 5 years down the line, we will have 3 types of entrance. 1, the bachelor's with research. 2, the bachelor's with honors with 1-year master's. And 3, the bachelor's of 3 years with 2 years of master's. So this is the flexibility facilitated through the multiple entry and exit and impacting your graduate, postgraduate and PhD program, which can be offered today in regional languages. So you can write your PhD thesis in Hindi or Gujarati or Marathi, and that will be taken into account. Now, when we talked about this flexible program, and we said at the beginning that the cognitive and the creative has to be encouraged, what Avanish has asked, where we incorporated sports, music, and so on, it is because we want it to be holistic education. The meaning of holistic undergraduation is to say that it is not just the intellectual and the knowledge development or the cognitive development. It is the creative, it is the aesthetic, it is the physical, it is the socio-emotional, it is the psychological, it is the moral, the spiritual, all these that are coming into existence. So for that, all higher education institutions should be able to encourage and provide opportunities for participating in debates, dramatics, youth festivals, sports, many other activities which contribute to such extracurricular in our understanding, what we have got in our mind, the so-called idea of extracurricular, which is equally important because, as I said, the 2 sides of the brain do not prejudice against each other. They go hand in hand together to make up for the holistic development. And empirical evidence tells us that the creative supplements and complements the cognitive. Music and mathematics complement one another. Learning a sport complements learning of other curricular subjects. So this has to be provided. But most important and a very, I would say, neglected area is the fact of socio-emotional well-being of students. Today's students, born in the 21st century, born with the mobiles, are very different from you and me, where we learned grappling with the mobiles. They are born with the mobiles. And since they have the mobiles with them, their attention spans are very limited. They do not express their grievances and concerns with real friends. They do it on Instagram, Facebook, and all forms of social media. As a result, there is a lot of isolation and a lot of mental stress that students are facing. Unlike the power of the family that we enjoyed, these youngsters, unfortunately, the times in which they live with technology, the disadvantage is that they have become very isolated individuals. So, what are we seeing? A lot of students going into depression, bipolar disorders, a lot of psychological problems, by which they turn to drug abuse, substance abuse, and in extreme cases, suicides. This increasing trend has got to be addressed world over. There is a lot of research today being done on the mental health and well-being of young students who are likely to be impacted by these, and this directly affects their academic performance. So the need for addressing the socio-emotional well-being is promoted by putting a lot of focus on developing physical education and sports. Why? You all know a healthy mind resides in a healthy body. So when we talked about yoga and sports and all that, it is when you are physically healthy, you are also emotionally healthy. And sports brings about the acceptance of failure, the acceptance that somebody else can excel. So when we have a sportsmanship spirit, we say, we understand that I may not always be the winner, and that losing is not a failure, but losing is also something that is a part of participation. So that, along with, we said in the policy, not just academic and career counseling, but also psychological counseling, which brings me to the role of a teacher. The role of a teacher in the new context has completely changed. We were not, when our teachers were there, our teachers were only transmitting knowledge. That was the limited role that they had. But today, in an environment where students are accessing the internet, and whatever we are saying can be available at the touch of a fingertip on their mobiles or through the mouse on a computer, they need to have teachers who are not just disseminating knowledge, which they can always access outside, but are facilitators, are motivators, are mentors, are people who are enabling them to learn. Learning how to learn is the new mantra. Teaching the learners how to make connections between knowledge domains, how to learn through what we call creating active learning environments. So the point that Jeevan Kumar was raising, that we have less time for teaching, because today when you look at your syllabi, you prepare a lesson plan. Certain things, yes, my 1 hour that I have as my lecture time or 45 minutes, I break it down, in which I say I will talk for 15 minutes. The rest is through activities where there is group discussion, where there is games. Games meaning not playing a game, but using gamification, using technology, using quizzes, asking students to present things, using a flip mode classroom method, playing a small video of 3 minutes to highlight a point, blended models. All these are woven into the class so that the learner is engaging with you as a faculty, with fellow learners for group activities, and with the content in a very engaging manner, moving towards what we say is outcome-based education. So to move towards outcome-based education, you unbundle the content that you teach with clear understanding that having taught this topic, my learner will acquire knowledge about this concept, understanding about this topic, competency in this area, and skills in this area. So you break it down, and which means please throw all your old notes. Do your homework. Start preparing afresh into this new paradigm that you need to be teaching. And break out that I will teach the way my teacher taught me. Firstly, you remove that thought from your mind, because that is the critical attitudinal change that as a teacher you need to do. And you, if you do not do that, you are doomed to perish and your student is doomed to perish. Here I will tell you the analogy of the theory of evolution. In the theory of evolution, we said that fittest will survive. And the largest species, called the dinosaur, became extinct because of the inability of that species to adapt. So please, if you don't want to be the dinosaur and you don't want your student to be the dinosaur, throw away all your old notes. Start looking at your topic afresh and don't use the lecture method. Go to Flipnote, go to games, go to quizzes, go to group activities, go to presentations, go to field activities, go to library activities. All these activities, which is also given in the UGC guidelines for the 4-year curricula. And start looking at outcome-based education. If I asked myself this question as a teacher who taught in Bombay University for so many years, where my students are, and if I don't have an answer, it is because I did not implement outcome-based education. You cannot afford to do that today. In school education, a teacher is directly held responsible for the performance of our students. And in higher education, we go, I have 12 lectures in a week, 14 lectures in a week, my work is over. Please move away from that to saying that where has my student gone when they have completed my course. Don't look at it only from your sociology or only from your physics or only from your chemistry, but understand you have a much larger role in equipping students to become complete individuals, to become what we call the T-shaped graduates. So I am completely shaking you out of your comfort zone, but 2-3 points more. We talk about the transformation, the emphasis not only on teaching, but also on research and research skills. And that undergraduate education must create an ecosystem for research and innovation. We also want entrepreneurial education, where we are talking about startups and incubation centers, because we want some students to become job creators. We are encouraging the integration of technology so as to address a better learning environment and blended models and hybrid models of learning. We are also talking about developing of languages. I am not touching about governance and regulation, but these academic changes, along with a last point on equity and inclusion. It is very important in a country which sets a gross enrollment ratio target to reach 50% by 2035. Some states have gone much ahead of the national average of 28.3. There are states which have 36 and so on. But if you have to reach a gross enrollment ratio of 50%, you have to include everyone in that. So we are talking about a term called socially and economically disadvantaged groups, SCDGs, to include the SCs, the STs, the OBCs, the linguistic and religious minorities, girls, transgenders, children with physical and learning disabilities, those living in inaccessible areas, and those who are having, let us say, neurodivergent problems, children coming from urban poor, migrant population, children from human trafficking, all these cross sections, over and above the reservation that the Constitution provides, that we should have special interventions, creating special education zones, social inclusion funds, gender inclusion funds, hostels and study room facilities, scholarships and free ships, all amenities of transportation subsidy and so on. And in higher education, the game changer, as I said, providing higher education in regional languages. India lives in its villages, and India is largely an agrarian country. Many students who complete their secondary education in regional languages aspire for higher education, but do not join higher education because it is offered in English language. Without undermining the importance of English, we have set to make education. What are our 5 goals? Access, equity, quality, affordability, and accountability. It is important that you make it accessible. And therefore, we are talking in terms of providing higher education in regional languages. What is the challenge? We speak and teach in English. To teach in another language, though we know it, it requires a lot of capacity building. So that is one challenge that we need to address. The second is translating the materials into regional languages. So there is a national mission on translation. It is already functioning. The Finance Commission has given it huge funds. All teaching material and your library books, your reading material, reference books, e-content are all getting translated into the 22 languages listed in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. So for the first time in India, we are having a new paradigm where we recognize India's linguistic strength, and higher education will be offered in regional languages, meaning your UG, your PG, and your doctoral programs can be in regional languages. While doing that, we are fully cognizant of the need to ensure that good communicative skills in English is nurtured in our higher education students, because it continues to remain the international link language, and therefore they must have good communication skills in that. That is why we incorporated the ability enhancement. So overall, my urge to you is to be moving away from your comfort zone, preparing for the new ways in which we need to teach. And the curriculum offerings must be made multidisciplinary. And as a teacher, you need to move towards outcome-based education. I'll stop over here and keep about 15-20 minutes for the interaction. Thank you very much.
प्रणाम मैम।
Yeah, please go ahead.
मैं डॉक्टर दीपक कुमार प्रेमी संस्कृत का विद्यार्थी हूँ मैम। मेरे 2 प्रश्न हैं। पहला प्रश्न ये है कि जैसे प्रैक्टिकल के विषय होते हैं, प्रैक्टिकल किया जाता है उसमें, तो भाषा के प्रैक्टिकल के लिए उच्चारण ज्ञान अवधान के लिए एनईपी में मैम कुछ ऐसा है कि भाषा का प्रैक्टिकल लिया जा सके, प्रैक्टिकली विषय उसे बनाया जा सके। और दूसरा प्रश्न मेरा है कि ये जो डिग्री दी जा रही है 4 प्रकार की यूजी में, तो इन चारों डिग्रियों का क्या क्या काम है, किस किस अवस्था में कौन सी एलिजिबिलिटी फुलफिल करके कौन सा फॉर्म अप्लाई किया जा सकता है इन सब डिग्रियों के द्वारा? ये 2 चीज जानना चाहता हूँ।
एक तो ये जो डिग्रियां हमने प्रोवाइड की है, जो 3 वैरायटी के है, ये एक एक अलग अलग काम के लिए नहीं होती है। एक एक स्टूडेंट के हिसाब से जो वो करना चाहता है वो कर सके। लेकिन सारे जो 3 साल के हो या 4 साल के हो या 4 साल विथ रिसर्च हो, ये सारे मल्टीडिसिप्लिनरी हो। क्योंकि जैसे मैंने बताया, आज के दिन में जो ग्रेजुएट निकलता है वो टी शेप्ड ग्रेजुएट होना है, बल्कि वो आई शेप्ड ग्रेजुएट नहीं होना है, जैसे आप और हम हैं। आपका जो लैंग्वेज का जो लैब है, अभी भी लैंग्वेज सिखाने के लिए, बाकी लैंग्वेजेस के लिए, संस्कृत के लिए मुझे इतना जानकारी नहीं है, लेकिन इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज और बाकी के जो राष्ट्रीय भाषाएं हैं उसमें लैंग्वेज लैब्स होते हैं जहां पे वो प्रैक्टिकल्स करते हैं। तो आपके संस्था में अगर लैंग्वेज लैब्स नहीं है तो आप जरा देख लीजिए, जो बाकी संस्थाओं में जैसे लैंग्वेज लैब्स है जहां पे वो कंप्यूटर्स और टेक्नोलॉजी को इंक्लूड करते हुए लैबोरेटरी वर्क और प्रैक्टिकल वर्क स्टूडेंट से करवाते हैं। तो ये आप जरूर अटेम्प्ट कीजिए, क्योंकि संस्कृत भाषा में भी प्रैक्टिकल लैब्स होने चाहिए।
जी जी मैम, इसमें तो और जरूरी है मैम, उच्चारण ज्ञान इत्यादि सबकी जानकारी
नहीं,
के
वो
लिए।
तो एक्सेप्टेड है, लैंग्वेज लेबोरेटरीज एक्सेप्टेड है और लैंग्वेज लैब्स होते हैं संस्थाओं में। आपके भाषा में अगर नहीं है तो ये किस तरह से लेके आ सकते हैं, ये आपकी तरह से एक प्रयास करना चाहिए आपके।
जी बिल्कुल।
Hello, Namaste ma'am. This is Ramesh from Raebareli. आई हैव सब कपल ऑफ क्यूरियोसिटी मैम। मैम पहला तो ये था कि हमने सुना था जब इंडिया मार्का आया तो सभी प्रदेशों के लिए इंडिया मार्का आ गया था। तो पता चला कि उत्तराखंड में
What
इंडिया
is
मार्का लगाना
India?
हुआ तो वहां पे तो लग नहीं
What
सकता
is
था।
India marka?
इंडिया मार्का नल होता था मैम, जो ये पानी निकालने के लिए शुरू में आया था पंचायती राज के तहत।
Okay.
तो वो बहुत नीचे से पानी निकालता था तो वो ले आता था। तो वो उत्तराखंड के लिए मतलब पहाड़ी क्षेत्रों के लिए भी एसी रूम में बैठ के स्कीम बना दी गई।
हाँ.
कभी कभी वैसे लगता है एनईपी, मैं एनईपी का सपोर्टर हूँ, उसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। मूल संकल्पना
You
बिल्कुल
can be
ठीक
critical of NEP. I have no objection to
है।
that.
मैम,
Everyone is entitled to their views.
यस 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 मैम।
हाँ.
तो हमारे यहाँ जो रूरल के कॉलेजेस हैं जहाँ बेसिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मिसिंग है, तमाम चीजें नहीं हैं, उसमें इम्प्लीमेंट कर पाना एक बड़ा चैलेंजिंग इशू है। पहली चीज तो ये। और दूसरा मैम, जैसा कि जीडीपी का 6% एजुकेशन पे खर्च होना, कितनी रिपोर्ट्स आई, सब होना आवश्यक है। इवन की रिसर्च पे, रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट पे 1% से कम खर्च हो रहा, 0.69% ऐसे ही कुछ है। तो इस पे क्या विचार है मैम आपके दोनों?
You have asked a right question to a right person, because I worked in the planning commission for a good 5 years.
जी जी मैम।
And let me give you the reality. And it is a hard hitting reality. I used to also handle a scheme in the government of India.
जी
900 crores allocated for the National Mission on Teachers and Teaching, which was commonly called the Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya National Mission on Teachers and Teaching. Are you aware that out of the budgetary allocations, none of the government departments implementing higher education through institutions can even spend more than 30% of the allocated funds? Funds की कमियों की बात नहीं है, आपको वो अब्सॉर्ब करते हुए यूज करने के लिए भी क्षमता नहीं है। क्योंकि जो एक ही एक्सपेंडिचर हम कर पाते हैं बिल्डिंग खड़ा करने के लिए, कैपिटल
जी
वर्क्स, उसके लिए नहीं होती है पैसे। ये एक रियलिटी है कि फॉरगेट द 6%, even the 4.3% that we are spending today on higher education, which is a share of the government of India, 17 ministries and all the state governments taken together. जब आप बी budgeted expenditure, revised estimates and your final expenditure देखेंगे, हर time it is very painful to see that only 40% of the allocated budget could ever be spent. This is the reality. So someone who is there as part of the budgeting exercise, if I had the time, I would have opened your eyes to the reality that on one side, the budgeted allocation itself, 900 crores, the scheme that I handle, I can tell you very clearly. हमने जो फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री में 1700 करोड़ का प्रोजेक्ट रखा था, फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री ने हमें 900 करोड़ दिया था, टू बी डन in the 12th plan period between 2012 to 2017. उसमें से उन्होंने 450 करोड़ हमें एलोकेट किया था। ये प्रोग्राम कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग के लिए था, जिसमें स्कूल्स ऑफ एजुकेशन, टीचिंग लर्निंग सेंटर्स, फैकल्टी डेवलपमेंट सेंटर्स, सेंटर्स ऑफ एक्सीलेंस इन साइंस एंड मैथमेटिक्स, 95 सेंटर्स हमने क्रिएट किए। और उसका एक्चुअल एक्सपेंडिचर जो एलोकेटेड फंड्स 450 करोड़ था, उसमें से हमने सिर्फ 200 करोड़ स्पेंड किए। दिस इज द रियलिटी। So let us not go on talking about the 6% GDP. I'm least bothered about that. What fund you got, can you spend it for the purpose it was intended? People are asking funds only to construct buildings. Buildings are necessary, infrastructure is there, but why they want only for buildings? I think you and I understand why building is becoming more important.
Tender and quotations, yes,
all sorts of things. Let us not talk about it in public domains. But the fact remains that capacity building, आपका laboratories जो चाहिए, library books जो खरीदने हैं, जो computer lab setup करने हैं, faculty positions आप लेके आइए, fulfill करें. All these things you are not spending. For training you are not spending, but you are thinking only about the capital works. So these 6% GDP, I am not saying should not be achieved. It is a desirable thing, but the committed expenditure that we have been provided in our budgets itself are not being spent in the desired extent. So this is a real concern. And as teachers, because I didn't know about it when I was a teacher, but it's only when I entered Planning Commission I realized this huge gap between what is allocated and what is being spent. So suffice it to say that, and on your rural areas, I must say that though I didn't get the understanding why you were talking about the groundwater project, rural areas with the limited, see in India, one size fits all does not operate. Neither do we want one size fits all. Every place, the context is different, the needs are different, the regional situations are different. Whatever is available, अब it is possible कि जैसे आप अगर उत्तराखंड से है, वहां पे जो कॉलेजेस अवेलेबल है विसिनिटी में, हो सकता है कि कुछ हाई एंड सब्जेक्ट्स हम नहीं प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं. हालांकि आवर एम इज टू बिकम लाइक दैट ऑल colleges and all institutions should develop whatever is
sorry for interruption ma'am. My purpose was that कि जैसे हम कोई प्रोजेक्ट ले आते हैं तो उसे पायलट प्रोजेक्ट के लाते हैं. जैसे मनरेगा आया तो 100 जिले में आया, 200 जिले में आया, फिर 650 जिले में आया, फिर हम एनईपी लाए. रूरल और अर्बन का जो डिफरेंस है मैम, जो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में जो प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, लाइक दैट कि जैसे वो उन्होंने उस मतलब पहाड़ी क्षेत्रों के लिए भी वहां लागू कर दिया जबकि वो एप्लीकेबल नहीं था. तो कहीं ना कहीं हमें इसकी एक प्रॉपर स्टडी होनी चाहिए थी कि हमारी रूरल कॉलेजों की क्या डिमांड है, वहाँ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर ये सारी चीजें हैं कि नहीं, और अर्बन की हमारी क्या रिक्वायरमेंट्स है. उस संदर्भ में मैं बात कर रहा था.
Okay, so Dr. Yadav, let me tell you, for 5.5 years, when we consulted, please understand, 120 villages, 600 districts, 3,000 urban local bodies. I have the data even now as the master user. We asked questions about all these things, my dear. We have taken in feedback and inputs, right from panchayats to blocks to districts to state level, on infrastructure, on faculty positions, on requirements and regional context. This data was analyzed. 7.5 lakh suggestions we have sifted through to arrive at these conclusions. And we are aware that while urban and rural and hilly, tribal areas, island areas all have different situations.
Yes,
we
sir.
have not said that it should be a one size fits all. We are very clear that what is doable in a given context, and the UGC guidelines for implementation are also taking into account these differentiations. We have not made this policy only for the urban limited clientele. This policy is for all, recognizing that this country has a lot of disparities. So if you read through the principles that we said, we have recognized the social and the regional disparities and said that we still need to work towards minimizing these disparities. So it is challenging, no doubt.
Yes,
ज्यादा चैलेंज होती है, बट ये नहीं बोल सकते कि हम ये पॉलिसी वहां लागू नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि जो पॉलिसी का एक एस्पिरेशन है, इसके लिए हम मूव करना चाहिए. यू नीड टू स्टार्ट मूविंग टुवर्ड्स दैट. और उसी स्पिरिट में जो भी प्रॉब्लम्स आते हैं उसका सॉल्यूशंस हम लेते आइए, जो कॉन्टेक्चुअलाइज्ड है, लोकलाइज्ड है, और जो रीजनल रिक्वायरमेंट्स के हिसाब से लेके आइए. So that
thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We can take 2 more questions. We'll stop at 1 o'clock. We can go up to 1. Yes.
नमस्कार मैम, मैं दार्जिलिंग से हूँ, नीरज राय. तो मेरा एक क्वेरी है, जो अभी नेप के अंडर में जो रीजनल लैंग्वेज का बात चल रहा है, तो मैं नेपाली लैंग्वेज का हूँ, तो एनईपी में एक टारगेट रखा हुआ है कि इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी जो टेक्निकल एजुकेशन में हम कितने ईयर में रीजनल लैंग्वेज में पढ़ा सकते हैं, वो कुछ है मैम, टारगेट है?
रीजनल लैंग्वेजेस में हम अलाउ कर चुके हैं, बट मैं ये नहीं कर पाऊंगी whether Nepali would be a language. You may have to choose some other language which is having a lot of similarity to that, because I don't think Nepali features in the 22 languages of the Constitution of India. So yes, I don't know about Nepal.
Our Nepali language is also 8th scheduled, ma'am.
It is included.
Yes,
तो
yes,
included है. तो अभी तक तो हमने नेपाली में स्टार्ट नहीं की है. हमने 8 या 10 लैंग्वेजेस में स्टार्ट किया है.
हाँ मैम, वो मैंने देखा है, इसलिए तो मैं पूछ रहा हूँ. यस मैम.
हाँ, नहीं, हम ये अगर वो लिस्टेड है तो आपकी तरफ से उसके लिए एक केस बनाना चाहिए कि ये लैंग्वेज में भी, लेकिन उसमें वो टाइम लग जाएगी। मुझे लग रहा है कि तो मेजर इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस उसी को पहले कवर करेंगे। आज के दिन में 10 लैंग्वेजेस में हो चुकी है, और हो सकता है कि 2-3 साल और लग जाए जाकि बाकी लैंग्वेजेस में भी कवर हो जाए, क्योंकि उसकी मटेरियल ट्रांसलेट होना है, फैकल्टी अवेलेबल होना है। ये सारे दिक्कतें को लेते हुए नाम के लिए तो बोलने की जरूरत नहीं है कि हम चलो इसमें भी स्टार्ट करेंगे, जब वो ऑफर करना मुश्किल हो।
वही कितना ईयर का टारगेट रखा हुआ है, वही पूछ रहा हूँ मैं।
नहीं, टारगेट नहीं है, हमें करना ही है, हमें करना ही है। देयर इज नो टारगेट लाइक दैट, वी हैव टू मेक इट अवेलेबल इन ऑल इंडियन लैंग्वेजेस, हमने बोला है। So you
In
need to
our
do,
language, yes, ma'am.
if you put it as a target, we have only said that this policy will implement all recommendations by 2040. Lekin I don't want you to wait till 2040. Let us hope it happens in 4 or 5 years.
Thank you, ma'am, thank you.
Are there any more questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
So let me
Thank you, ma'am.
wish you all best,
Thank you, ma'am.
and please
Thank
review
you,
the
ma'am.
guidelines so that you can implement the policy in the right spirit.
बहुत बहुत
And
धन्यवाद
आप
मैम।
Right,
के
ma'am.
तरफ से आपके
Thank you
HODs
very much.
और डायरेक्टर्स के सामने आपने जो आज सुना है, उसके बेसिस से वो गाइडलाइंस उनको तक भी लेके आ जाइए, ताकि आपके जो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन प्रॉब्लम्स है उसको सॉर्ट कर। थैंक यू वेरी मच। गॉड
Right,
ब्लेस।
ma'am. Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very informative session.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am. Thank you,
Very
ma'am.
eye-opening session.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
मुझे लगता है अब सेशन लेफ्ट कर देना चाहिए।
Okay, sir.
के उद्देश्य को बताते हुए गाइडलाइंस के उद्देश्य को बताते हुए इसकी कार्यपद्धति क्या है, गाइडलाइंस के उद्देश्य को बताते हुए इसकी कार्यपद्धति पर
MET for medical research. MET for medical research. कितना साइड है ये और एल फॉर एनालिसिस एल फॉर एनालिसिस एक बार मेडिकल मेडिकल एमईडी एलए 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 है अच्छा एलए यानी कि MED हो गया मेडिकल, L फॉर वेंटिलेटर, R फॉर वेंटिलेटर, S फॉर सिस्टम, क्लियर? MED मेडिकल,
डॉक्टर गणेश जी, आपका माइक खुला हुआ है।
सर कुछ बाकी रह गया है क्या? अभी कुछ होना है कुछ?
नहीं, क्विट कर सकते हैं।